Welcome back to the Inner Revolution series. I'm Tina, and my guest today is Gregor Matsuda Tavares. Gregor is an Enneagram coach, a Reiki master, and a Tai Chi instructor. He uses his tools to help others find a balance between the external shifts and the internal transformations in life. And today he's going to talk about the Enneagram and how it can help to cultivate presence and to embrace our humanity. And I'm very excited because I don't know so much about the Enneagram, and I'm really excited to hear all about it. Thanks for being here, Gregor.
Yes, great being here, Tina, and really appreciate this opportunity to share more about the Enneagram with others.
Cool. So yeah, shall we start with just explaining what the Enneagram is, and most importantly, how it can help us, to overcome, our baggage from the past, limiting beliefs, everything we struggle with, so just enlighten us.
Right, sure. Yeah, so Enneagram is this ancient tool that has been thousands of years, and more recently back in the beginning of the 20th century, and then later in the 70s, it was being incorporated with this more modern psychology, relations with these spiritual traditions where the Enneagram has these common roots from. And it's basically, Enneagram is a Greek word. Ennea means 9, and gram means drawing, or it's a diagram. So the diagram of the 9, and understanding that from several different cultures and spiritual traditions, there's always been these archetypes that later on was translated into our personalities. So we have these main 9 archetypes of our personalities. And then the Enneagram can help us not only to see where we are, but give us a path of growth. So some people, they look into personality tests. There are many personality tests, and some of them might feel a little bit like, I don't want to put myself in a box or being labeled. But actually, the Enneagram help us to see the box that we are living in, that we might be aware of our perceptions and how we respond unconsciously to interactions that are happening. And we can, from knowing your personality type, you're able to receive a more specific direction. What are the things that you may work on? What are the gaps that we are not aware of? And what are the strengths? What are the qualities? What are the virtues that can be enhanced by this knowledge?
So since it is like a personality test, like you say, okay, you're not running, how do you say this? It's not that you put yourself then in a box, and then that kind of enhances your limiting beliefs, because it says, wow, even now the Enneagram told me I'm like this, so I can't change.
Yes, actually, it's on the other side of it. It's help us to accept our personality traits, our patterns, and from this acceptance, with great compassion towards ourselves, this kindness towards our personality, we are able to, from there, transcend into our real self, into our true self. So it's really helping us to dissolve these patterns, soften these personality traits, and from then access our true nature. So it helps us really to be able to accept the configuration, the setup that we came in this lifetime, and from there understanding what are the common lessons that we're going to be revisiting throughout our whole life as a spiral. When we are seeing from the personality side, we will see this happen again in my life, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this situation once again is happening. Maybe it changed the characters, changed the people involved, but then you see yourself, oh my God, this is happening again. But actually, when we are seeing ourselves from a higher part of us, when accessing this more elevated perception that the Enneagram enables to see ourselves beyond the personality, we see that this development is happening like a spiral. So from a third dimensional perspective, it looks like a circle that you're stuck, but actually from a higher perspective, you can see the development, you can see the growth, you can see the expansion as you are revisiting that coming from a higher place.
Wow. So it can be complementary, right? To therapy or other tools you use on your healing journey, right? Because it's true, when you talk to a therapist or a coach, right? You always talk about, your habits and how your limiting beliefs and maybe your traumatic experiences, they always keep you in the loop of doing the same stuff and committing the same mistakes and reacting in the same way, right? So we always try to figure out where this comes from, what's the root of this, and there it might probably be a great tool, right, to help you to get faster results, because some things from our past we might even not remember. So maybe through the Enneagram, would that be a way like to discover what are these habits, these limiting habits or self-sabotaging habits we have, right?
Yes, like with this more specific direction, we can really enhance our growth. Let's say you receive like a general advice on you have to give more because you put others before you. And then some people might have the other spectrum of the excess of perhaps they receive so easily, but it's hard for them to give. So this balance between giving and receiving, it might be different depending on the personality traits.
Okay.
So if a person is from like a type 2, for instance, it drives their driver, the way they are wired, is to focus on others before. So if you know that's your pattern, you're able to balance that, thinking about yourself, not focusing so much on the needs of others, but actually looking at yourself and looking at your needs first. So depending on the personality traits, the lessons change. So instead of looking into several possibilities of what are the lessons that might serve me, I will look into what is my path of growth based on my personality. And not only for you to enhance and to develop yourself, but actually your relationship with others. Because we tend to see when we are stuck in our personality perception, we tend to think or to feel that others will perceive the situation on the same way.
Yeah.
Like you're looking from here and the person is seeing a 6 and the other person on the other side is seeing a 9. And from that personality perception, it's the truth for that position of point of view. But actually the Enneagram helps us to accept and to honor the other person's point of view and seeing their own truth. So what is true for the other, what is true for yourself, and from these both truths, from this personality and the other side and the other personality, we can transcend into a more elevated truth.
Yeah, where we find our things we have in common, right? Where we are on the same page.
Exactly. And also we are seeing it from transcendental perception. So when we are able to meet up there, we are able to go back to the situation that might be bringing us conflict, bringing us friction, bringing us some sort of challenging in our relationships, and we can see what is the common ground. Wow. What are the things that can align us to a higher truth? And from that truth, we are able to compassionate, look into our personalities with a greater understanding.
Right. I think it's great too, because I know that a lot of people, I mean, every single one of us, we carry our baggage, from something from the past or our stories, our experiences, but it can be scary, right? Like, and not everybody has the courage or the energy to start digging within themselves immediately, right? And try, to fix. So I think this like Enneagram would be maybe a really cool start, like an easy start, like something very smooth, like to start with, because it's not you yourself who have to look inside. Like you maybe answer some question, then you get presented by a picture of yourself that starts, that helps you start to reflect, right? So how does it usually look like when you have like a new client? So you go through several questions with the client, and that in the end gives you the result of which type you are. Yeah.
Yes. So there is the possibility that is, let's say, more popular one that people go into personality tests online available. So there are paid ones and free options. So that's one possibility. But what I want to call people on their attention in terms of the precision, when you're with a certified Enneagram coach like myself, you're able to go deeper and understanding what are the nuances that you might be at the moment that you are replying to a general personality test looks like this, but then with certified coach helping you go through the Enneagram, you're able to be more precise and really understand your type. So there are many cases that clients come to me after being through personality tests that they're being this type. And from this typing, this issue, they are not able to receive the right directions when it comes to the Enneagram as a map. Of course, as every map, the map doesn't correspond the reality itself, the territory. So the map is not territory, but the Enneagram gives us this very thoughtful and deep knowing of ourselves. And going through these sessions, you're able to not only discover your type, but actually going on the deeper layers of understanding your type and where to go next, in your own path as this type. So these main archetypes that we all have, we are able to accept it in such a way that I would say some personality tests, I'm talking about like several others, there are many types of personality tests, but some of them sometimes they have a tendency to judge particular behaviors and particular patterns. And what the Enneagram as a map does is from a non-judgmental space, help us to identify not only the behavior, because Enneagram is not based on the behavior, but actually it's based on the motivation, the deeper reasons behind the behavior. So a different type might be externally doing the same behavior, but underlying that same external behavior, there is this internal purpose. What the person is trying to fulfill as their need and understand what are these greater motivation behind the external behavior. So understanding these inner feelings and thoughts and these also this visceral, this instinct response might externally be expressed as a behavior.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like, I mean, there are so many ways, right, to tap into your subconscious mind to figure out, why you do what you do and stuff. So it sounds like a great tool, like to get there. And then you say, okay, it helps you also to be more present and to embrace your humanity. I mean, being present is always the greatest solution, right? Because if you're really mindful, really present in the now, nothing from the past, nothing about the future can actually bother you, and then you're okay. So how does the Enneagram help you to be more present?
So by understanding your personality type, you're able to see if you have a tendency to be more stuck in the past, as sometimes they have these more often happening in their lives, and sometimes are more focused in the future. So understanding your type, you're able to see what are the challenges for you to be able to be here right now at the present moment with whatever it is. And also as a way to understand our centers of intelligence. So sometimes they're called the centers and energy centers or centers of intelligence or the three centers of the Enneagram, which is our head, our heart, and our gut, or also connected with our body. So our bodies sometimes are more wired into our gut, into these body types, which are the types 1, 9, and 8. So they're wired into this instinct response, this primary response that actually when they are interacting with an external situation, they are wired in such a way into their gut that they respond that they don't think about it, they don't feel what's the situation like, they just know. So this is where I need to go, this is what I need to do, this is how I need to respond. And later on comes the thinking process, the feeling about the situation. And then we have our heart center, which is connected with these emotional types, which are type 2, type 3, and type 4. Those types are more wired into their heart. So the relationship with others and their whole sense of being is based on how do they relate with others. So they have different ways to respond to that. So I already mentioned the 2, it's very much driven into giving to others, understanding and reading by feeling what are other needs. Rather than the 4, it's the more individualistic type, but he needs this approval and his recognition from others that he's kind of unique, being kind of special as a way that he's perceived by others. So they are very much identified with their relationships in their lives. And then lastly, we have the head type, which are types 5, 6, and 7. So they are very much, the activity comes here in their headspace, thinking a lot. And of course, they have different ways to respond to the way they are wired into their head. So for instance, the type 7 is a type that focuses in the future and has a very challenging time to be with places and situations that are, let's say, undesirable, or they are difficult, or any kind of suffering, always trying to find in the future a better situation or a more positive perspective. And on the other hand, the type 6, it's very, very much based on the fear response, trying to anticipate. When you get to know a type 6, you will be making all the questions, trying to see what are the possible things that could go wrong. So it's a very much driven way that you're making all the questions. And the invitation for the type 6 is to learn to trust life, trust the process, and to trust other people, even though they cannot have all the possible answers for all the things that could go right or could go wrong.
Yeah.
So as you can see, different types have different lessons to be learned. Once you know the type, you know what is your pathway of growth heading you next.
Yeah.
Based on these different energy centers, these different centers of intelligence of the Enneagram.
Wow, it's amazing. So it basically helps you to identify your triggers, right? Like what triggers a certain behavior. And triggers are always the things that come from the subconscious mind, right? Or from our past or from experiences, right? That sometimes just take us over, right? And they make us act in a certain way. So, but once we know them, and we read it, as a result of like asking some questions, answering some questions. And once we are aware of it, it's like we're looking them right in the face. And this kind of like that takes their power they have over us away, right? So that's how I feel that this can be really helpful. And then does the Enneagram, all this science about the Enneagram also give you the solutions? Like, let's say you resolve the type 6. So then would the Enneagram also tell you, all right, since you're this type, you should go into this direction, or then you come in as a coach?
Yes. So like, for instance, when we look into the type 6, it gives you an indication what could be some of your growth. And the growth is towards what you can learn from the type 9. So there is a connection in between the lines. And from the 6th type, there is this path of growth. So how can you inspire yourself to receive some virtues of the type 9? And the type 9, as you asked about the type 6, the type 6 going towards the type 9, it's getting to this more peacemaker state, this more harmony that the type 9 brings us. The type 9, of course, has an issue with positioning himself, this is what I want, because part of his virtues are to be able to get a different perspective from A, a different perspective for B, understanding and seeing how they can come together. So the 9 is at the top of the Enneagram, is this more neutral, is more balancing, is more harmonic energy that is able to bring together all different traits. And then from the type 9, there is this need of going more towards the type 3, which is getting to action. So just close the triangle here, right? So we start with the type 6. The type 6 has this issue of trust, this issue of dealing with the fear, and trusting the process, trusting others. And going towards the type 9, it can make peace with it, making harmony with it. And then the type 9 as a personality, if it's the main personality of that person, the invitation is to go more towards the type 3, which is getting things done, taking action, and putting self in a way that is perceived by others, not being so hesitant with getting to a possible conflict. If you have something that you're going to position yourself, empower yourself, some people might agree, some people might not agree, and being okay with that. So we just close the triangle here. And these types are more of the foundational types of the Enneagram. And there are no better or worse types. They're just possible ways that we can learn from each other. And also, once you know your type, you're able to better accept not only the gaps that we all have, all the things that we can improve, all the things that we can develop in yourself, but actually also embrace our virtues. That every one of the 9 main types, they have these qualities that is inherent in their nature as a personality type.
Wow, it's amazing. Also, like it helps us like to embrace ourselves as these multi-dimensional beings, right? So we are not just like this, or the other person is not just like this, you know. It shows us that we all have these personality traits. Sometimes just we need to connect them a little bit, right? Like that all the power goes to one end. So now we are like shifting our energies a little bit, so to integrate everything. It's amazing. And this is thousands of years old. Like imagine how they figured this all out, you know, without brain science and neuroscience and all the. Is it a Japanese? Does it come from?
So Enneagram actually comes from a more Western origins.
Okay.
And it has these very embedded contemplative practices. So that's how it helps us to cultivate our presence, as we can see from these higher dimensions and embracing all our spectrum of ourselves being a multidimensional being. But then when we come and visit from this higher perspective and ground ourselves here on the third dimension as humans living on the planet Earth, we're able to have this deep acceptance for the way we've chosen to be here on this lifetime.
Yeah.
And it comes from a very lovely and a very compassionate place, because you know you're much beyond that. But there are certain traits of our personalities that they are for this lifetime. And knowing that some people call it soul, some people will call it spirit, knowing that this higher part of ourselves, this higher self, has chosen this pattern for us to live within this life. So there are certain lessons that will be going again to the spiral, revisiting us. Because as we are able to see it from a higher elevated perspective, we're able to see what is the growth taking place in your life and also in relationship with others. And the Enneagram has this more Western perspective, which for me, I like to see as a way to balance these more, let's say, Eastern approaches, which comes in my work with the Tai Chi, with the Reiki comes from Japan, Tai Chi comes from China. So seeing from this more Western perspective of the Enneagram, I believe it brings us this balancing of West and East, as I myself somehow have chosen to come in this lifetime with a Japanese mother and a Portuguese father. So I have this within myself.
Wow.
I have no choice. Within me, this Eastern Japanese side of me and this Western Portuguese side of me coming into.
Wow, it's amazing. You know, I mean, I've been, you know, my background is from the yoga scriptures and all this, right? And when I started studying them, I always thought, and that's why what I always tell people is, I'm like, you know, there are instruction manuals for how to be a human being, because it's like, you know, we take it for granted, you know, we're born into a human body. We have this amazing faculty, this brain, a mind, you know, spirit and emotions and all this. But in school, they teach us all the other stuff, but nobody teaches us how to deal with what's going on within ourselves, right? And then when we are adults and we struggle, then all of a sudden we have to figure out, you know, how to operate our instruments, right? So whatever all the tools, you know, we're talking about also in this summit, I think Enneagram is also one of the tools to help us understand how to be a human being and enjoy the experience, right? While you are here. So it's great. And I think you also offer a free gift, right? You offer, I think, that people can get more information about it, right? You want to talk
Yes,
about
yeah,
that?
of course, of course. So this is a present for the people that are participating here at the
Hmm.
Inner Revolution series. And it's an introduction to the Enneagram, talking about the main principles of this ancient tool that also brings these more modern perspectives of the psychological patterns and revisiting from this modern perspective our spiritual truths from many different traditions.
Okay,
And
wow.
the Enneagram has been spread into the world when it was back in the US, especially during the human potential movement.
Hmm.
Um, really started to be found again and revisiting
Hmm.
with a more alive way into rediscovering the Enneagram and it's spreading and it's spread it through the Jesuit community.
Hmm.
And that's how some of the contemplative Christian practices were also involved in this process. And as the Enneagram kept spreading throughout the four corners of the planet, it's also started to be also involved with many different spiritual traditions. So
Ah.
when we talk about contemplative practices, and some of them you will find here in this free gift for the participants of the Inner Revolution series, you will see that this part of the cultivating presence can take many forms. So
Hmm.
it started in my life later than Reiki practice, later than Tai Chi practice. And for me, when it comes to cultivating presence, it was a way to invite to this framework of the Enneagram, giving me a wider perspective, additional tools, but at the same time inviting me to integrate my practices into this philosophy
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
Enneagram. And what, besides the psychological patterns and the spiritual teachings that the Enneagram brings us, it also brings the somatic
Hmm.
aspect, which is
Hmm.
the embodiment part of it, which is again, once we access these higher states, can be in contemplative practices, meditation practices. You see nowadays the Enneagram being used within Buddhist meditation and
Hmm.
also other approaches and non-spiritual approaches to meditation in terms of mindfulness, all these integrating into the Enneagram usage. But what you can see is this space for you to cultivate the presence because once you access these higher states of consciousness, you through the Enneagram back, you are invited to bring it back to the here and now,
Hmm.
planet Earth. So instead of using some spiritual practice to get away from it, remembering yourself that you've chosen to come down to here, and there's a reason you've chosen to come here,
Yeah,
and you will
yeah.
not really have chosen to come here, you asked a lot to be having this experience. So it's reminding yourself to access these higher states and then bringing down into our
Wow.
personal life, our relationships, our professional life, and
Hmm.
bringing our daily activities.
Wow. I love how passionate you are about it. And I'm so curious now. As soon as we finish our talk, I'm going to do this test online and then I'll get back to you.
All right, all right.
And I think for our
Well,
listeners, it's great because during the summit, they get so many tools. And then through the Enneagram, that will probably also help them to find the right approach and the right tools for them. So thank you so much, Gregor. That was very enlightening for myself and I hope for everyone else. And I'm very curious to read the ebook you are sharing. Thank you so much. I'm
right.
wishing you
Thank you
all the
so
best.
much, Tina. Appreciate the whole Inner Revolution series. I'm here on your disposal for anyone who wants to go deeper into the Enneagram as a tool. And for this whole series, for us to be awakening to our inner truths that, as you
Mm-hmm.
said, we're not taught in school, we are not educated in this such formal way, but here we can relearn to have
Exactly.
those tools and
Yeah.
to awaken to this higher part of ourselves. So thank you so
Exactly.
much for this,
Beautiful.
and
Thank,
I want to keep contributing in many ways and forms.
thank you so much.